Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K Facebook Live video. And I'm just out here on my Facebook page, hopefully making sure that I'm live in the right spot, which it looks like I am. And it's going to take me a second to pull up the video and make sure that I can see comments from everybody. If you all are hopping in to say hello. So I appreciate it if you're watching live, and if you're watching the replay, that is fantastic too. That's always good, just as good. So feel free to leave comments and ask questions if you would like, and feel free if you're hopping in to say hello if you're joining for the live today. So today I'm going to show you a card that I made with the Clubhouse stamp set bundle, which is one that is in the January to June 2020 mini catalog from Stampin' Up. And it's a little different than what I normally do. I normally tend to do kind of simpler cards, and this one actually is a fancy fold, which again, this is not my normal. So the outside looks kind of plain and pretty much like a typical card for me, but the inside is actually where it's kind of cool. So this is what is called a tunnel card, which I'm not sure if I've ever made one of these before. But Kylie Bertucci over the weekend had posted a card. I think it was over the weekend, had posted a card. And then someone shared out on my, hey, Christine, thanks for hopping in. Someone shared out on my business Facebook page over the weekend a similar card, but she had done this golfer on the outside of the card. So I sort of went, I think if I sort of mushed the two of those together and did a tunnel card project with that, I think this would be the perfect stamp set to show off one of those. So that's what I did. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how I made that. So hey, Patricia, thanks for hopping in today. So again, this is the Clubhouse Stamp Set Bundle, which is in the mini catalog. So definitely a good one for anybody who's a golfer. Also good for masculine cards, which is great because as we all know, we all kind of struggle a little bit with, at least I struggle with those. I don't know if everybody does, but masculine cards are sometimes a little more difficult to make. So good morning. Yep. But thanks for hopping in, everybody. And then here are the dies that coordinate with it. So we've got dies that match the golfer and the golf ball and the golf clubs and the sentiments on here. So like I said, that one's got a die that goes with it, and then some accessory dies as well. So definitely a good stamp set bundle for anybody who's into golf. So I'm going to set that aside. Actually, I'm going to set it right up there for now. So get that out of my way. The other stamp set that I used, hey, Mary, thanks for hopping in. So you're going to be shocked, but I'm doing a fancy fold card today. I'm sort of feeling Mary-ish. So although not nearly as many Stampin' dimensionals as a Mary card. So so anyway, I also used the, hey, Christy, thanks for hopping in. And Christine, yep. Yes, it definitely is. So, hey, Karen, thanks for stopping in to say hello, too. So, I used the Winter Woods stamp set, actually, just for this tree line image on this card. So, that's actually what we're going to use first. And a couple tips as we go along here. Use your stamparatus definitely when you're doing this type of card, just because you're stamping right smack in the middle of your cardstock. I did use some Stampin' dimensionals, so no worries, Mary. You're going to be stamping right in the middle of your card base, and you're not going to be able to cover this up very easily. So make sure you use your stamparatus to get a good image on this. The card base is, hey, Mary, I'm glad that you're, Mary laughing, I should say, because we got two Marys on here. So glad that you're hopping in and finally able to catch a live too. So I've got a Sahara sand card base, and it's cut to 5.5 by 8.5. And you'll notice that I have not scored it yet. I thought about it before I started my first project, and I thought I'm going to not score the card base. And what's the very first thing I did? Walked over and scored the card base, and then went, I didn't mean to do that. The issue with you, if you score the card base first, is that when you go to stamp your tree line right in the center of the card base, you're going to get lines that it won't stamp very nicely right along the score line. So don't do what I did the first time. Do what I'm doing in the video, and make sure that you ink up and stamp your tree line image before you score your card base. So I've got some soft suede ink, and I'm inking it up. And again, it's Sahara sand cardstock for the card base. Hopefully I've got this on the screen. Tucking that up in the corner, and then just going to use the stamparatus. The main reason that I used this is just to make sure that I get a good clean image, and if I didn't, that I'd easily be able to restamp it. I will tell you that I did not do a really fantastic job of centering and making sure that the tree image was perfectly in the middle of the card and all that stuff, because really very little of it shows. So I just wanted to get it sort of in the middle. And you know, like I said, it does not very much of it shows. So if you don't get it perfectly centered, nobody's going to know. You just want to make sure you're not way off to one side or the other. That's all. So, all right. So yep, the second time I think it looks a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and set this aside. And then I had better close up my ink pad that I have set over here open before I have a disaster. So, all right. So now that we have the card base, the inside stamped, I'm going to pull out, and I know this is going to be huge on the screen. I'm sorry. I'm going to pull out my Simply Scored tool here, and I'm going to score at 4 1/4. So just scoring it right down the middle. One quick note on the stylus that comes with your scoring tool, your Simply Scored tool, is that you'll see it's got a smaller end and a bigger end. The reason for that is cardstock you can score, and you want to get a good, nice deep score with it. You can use the narrower end. The wider end is actually designed to be used with designer series paper because you don't want to score that quite as deeply. Otherwise, you may actually rip it, which we don't want that to happen either. So, and I guess I need to leave this out here because we'll need that for the next step. So as I usually do, I did some of this ahead of time so that you didn't have to sit and watch me do everything on camera. But I've got a piece of the Country Club Designer Series paper, and I've got it cut to 8 1/4 by 5 1/4. And we're going to score it again. Whoop, I almost used the wrong end, with the wide end of the scoring tool at 2 1/4. And we're going to score it. I'm sorry, I said the wrong number already. 2 1/8 is what the first one is. 4 1/8. And then we're going to score it again at 6 1/8. All right, so those are your score lines. Then the next thing you do, which I already did ahead of time, again, just so you didn't have to sit and watch me die cutting, is I took one of the layering ovals dies, and it's the second largest one, and placed it right in the center of the Designer Series paper panel. There we go. Ran it through the die cutting machine and just cut the oval out of the center. So pretty simple so far. The next step on the little project is actually to cut the frame that's on the inside here, the Night of Navy frame. And to do that, I took a piece of Night of Navy cardstock, and again, I did this ahead of time so that you don't have to sit and watch me, but I'll explain what I did. I did one of these a week or two ago. Hey, Roz, glad that you were able to hop in and join too. So did one of these a week or two ago on a video as well where I cut a little thin frame like this, but I took the second largest layering oval frame, and then I took the largest layering oval frame, made sure that they were not, in fact, laying on top of each other because I've done that before and your dies break. So just be careful when you're doing this type of thing to make sure that you've got your dies one inside the other and not one on top of the other, because it will be very unfortunate if they're on top of the other. So one inside the other, and ran it through die cutting machine and cut out a little thin frame. And let me put these over here before I lose track of everything. Next thing we're going to do is use a little bit of the multi-purpose liquid glue, and we're going to glue that die cut frame around the die cut that I had done in the Designer Series paper. And I don't know why I can't glue and talk at the same time, but apparently I cannot. So, because I guess I just have to hold my mouth a certain way in order to glue and not end up with glue on everything. I'm going to use my handy dandy little tweezers. And we're going to glue that hopefully right around, if I can get it to let go, there we go. Glue it right around the die cut oval here in the Designer Series paper. And then I'm going to press this down and make sure that it's pretty well adhered, and give it just a second, just because we are going to be folding this, and I want to make sure that this is adhered down well before I move on and start folding. So, all right, so as you can see in here, this is a valley fold, which means makes a V, and then we got a mountain fold, and then we got a valley fold over on this side. So that is what you're going to do with your Designer Series paper, is you're going to fold it on the score line here. First time is going to be your valley fold. The second one is going to be a mountain fold. And then the third one is going to be a valley fold, just like that. So it makes sort of an accordion look. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this and adhere it to the inside of the card base. And all that you want to do is make sure that you're lined up here in the middle. You've got your score lines on your Designer Series paper lined up with your score lines in your card base. And then we're going to take a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue. You could probably use snail if you wanted to on this, but the multi-purpose liquid glue, the one nice thing about it when adhering something like this is it does give you just a minute in the event that you have something that didn't work out quite the way you thought it would and isn't glued down exactly where you want it to be. It gives you a minute to sort of smooth things out and make sure everything is right where you want it to be. Hey, Catherine, thanks for hopping in. So that's a known thing, must hold mouth just, yes. And Mary, I know, is the expert at mouth holding in just a certain way to make sure that everything goes straight. So I will definitely, take her lead on that, and because I know that she's right. All right, so using a little bit more of the multi-purpose liquid glue to adhere the top or the other half of the flap down to the other side of the card base. So this is what it looks like when it's flat. And then we're going to kind of pick up in the middle here and just fold our card base in half and then press it with bone folder to make sure that we get a nice crease in here. And then we're going to smoosh down the rest of it with the bone folder as well. So we've basically got the tunnel part of it all done, which that's definitely the hardest part of the card. So, all right, so now that we have that done, I'm going to pull out the little golfer guy, and we're going to do a little bit of coloring. I went ahead and stamped it in Tuxedo Black Memento ink ahead of time, just so it had an opportunity to dry before I went ahead and started coloring. And I am using the light crumb cake Stampin' Blends marker. I will tell you that I did not really do any shading on here because it's pretty well shaded, I feel like, with the way the stamped image is on it. So that is, so I didn't feel like I needed to bring in a lot of the dark colors and do a whole lot of shading over the top of what was already there. So just kind of kept it pretty simple, tried to make it look not blotchy. That's the main thing. I'm going to be using a little bit of the light Poppy Parade to color the shirt and the hat, and hopefully I won't color any of the arm because I almost did that the first time with my Poppy Parade marker. One other thing while I'm coloring this is to know about this card is that you'll definitely want to create the inside of it before you go to work on the outside of it, on the front of it. Just because if you try to create the front first, you're going to end up with your card. First of all, you're going to want your card folded and scored and all that so you know where the middle of it's at. And then that's going to cause trouble when you're trying to do the inside of your card because it's not going to lay down flat and you're just going to be unhappy with it. So that is my second tip about the card when you're making it, is just be sure that you are creating the inside of the card before you go to work on the outside of the card. So, all right. A little bit of, like I said, Poppy Parade. We don't have a Garden Green Stampin' Blends marker. I wish we did, but the closest that I could get was light Call Me Clover. So that's what I used for the kind of the grass areas on this card. And I didn't do, again, not really nice coloring. I just sort of put the color on the card and left it at that. So, all right. This is light gray granite that I used for the bottom of the shoes because I didn't really know what other color to put on the shoes. I didn't want it to look strange and be like, oh, he has blue shoes or something, odd like that. Just sort of wanted them to blend in. And then also used it on the golf club. And normally I color with the brush end, but when I'm doing the little tiny stuff like this, I feel like the little bullet tip on the marker works a little bit better. And then the last color that I used is ivory on the skin, which again, there are a couple of other skin tone markers. If you prefer not to use the ivory, if you want to use darker skin or whatever, you can use different colors, different skin colors on the Stampin' Blends markers. So definitely a nice little thing. All right, so we're done coloring our little golfer guy, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if you saw me pull this out before, but I actually had die cut a blank, one that hadn't been stamped, out of the Whisper White cardstock because when you flip it over, you can see that the ink has bled through when you colored, and I didn't necessarily like the look of that because you can see it when you go to open the card. I don't know how well you can see it on screen, but I can see it really well in here that you can see the inside of the golfer, and I did not want kind of that blotchy colored look, so I actually just took a blank white one and adhered it over the top with a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue. And again, this doesn't need to be really neatly glued and awesomely done or anything like that. Just make sure you get it stuck down fairly well. The other little bonus of adding a second layer in here is that it makes it a little bit more sturdy for the inside of your card when you are, because it's going to be folded and unfolded and folded and unfolded because it's a cool fold. So, so the recipient's going to get it and want to open and close it 1,000 times. And it makes it a little bit more sturdy when you've got 2 layers on this type of an image, since it's kind of going to be sitting over the top of the opening. So, all right, so now that he's adhered down, the next thing that I did is I placed it in here and looked carefully at where the score lines were at on my designer series paper. I wanted to make sure that the golf club didn't get stuck in the fold. So I'm placing it right next to the fold, so I can see I need to put a little adhesive down here at the bottom, a little bit on the top of his head, and then make sure that I have adhesive on the golf club. And so that is what I'm going to do as far as making sure that I get adhesive in the right place. I don't want to use a bunch of liquid glue or any kind of adhesive in a spot where it's going to accidentally stick to the background of the card when you open it. So that would definitely not be good. Open or close it, I should say. All right, so we're going to adhere this down here. Again, I'm going to try to adhere it straight and not glue it to the background and, get it stuck down, which hopefully I got all those in one swing. Keep your fingers crossed that I didn't glue it to the back, which, yay, I didn't. You'll see that a little bit of this does overhang where it folds at, but it's not enough to really be concerned about. I didn't think. I thought it fit in there nicely, and it stays inside the card base when it's closed. So, again, that was kind of the look that I was going for. I didn't want to have the golf club creased. So, all right. Next thing that I did is, again, I went ahead and stamped this ahead of time from the Clubhouse stamp set. I stamped this in Night of Navy. One swing. Yeah, I know. See, I'm too funny. I hadn't even thought about that being a golf joke until you mentioned it. So I went ahead and stamped this in Night of Navy ink from the Clubhouse stamp set, and then cut around it with one of the stitch rectangle dies. Just use one of the longer, narrower ones, and cut that out. Going to use a little bit of snail to adhere it to the inside of the card base. And I did find that this particular die cut did fit perfectly in here. And, it took me a minute to sort of, measure out each one and make sure that I was using the right size, so that you're able to write a little sentiment in here if you should want to do that. If you really want to get wordy and do another sentiment panel over here, you could definitely do that. But I figured this one was probably enough for the inside of the card. So the inside's really all done. Like I said, this is the more difficult part, but it's really pretty easy. I'm not into doing difficult cards that take forever. This one I get done in actually a very, very short time. So the next thing that I did was I took some more of the Country Club Designer Series paper and cut a panel to 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. And then I have another one here that is 1 3/4 by 3 5/8. And we're just going to adhere the two pieces together. And look at that. I guess I hadn't even paid attention. It's the same exact piece of Designer Series paper. I just used the flip side. And actually, I kind of borrowed a little bit of this design from the mini catalog. There's a set of, I don't know, I want to say golf balls or something that they've got in there. Some sort of 3D project that they had this on the front of it. And I like the way it looked. So that was why I picked this one and why I went with this design. So... And then we're going to adhere that to a piece of garden green cardstock, again with a little bit of snail. Hey, Carol, thanks for hopping in. I'm glad that you like the card and glad that you like the inside of it. So it was fun to make. Like I said, I don't tend to do a lot of the fancy fold cards and more complex things. I'm very much the clean and simple stamper, but I thought I'd go out on a limb and try this today since it was a pretty simple one. So next thing I've got is a little bit of the Country Club Twine Combo Pack, which has got Garden Green, Basic Black, Night of Navy, and Poppy Parade for twines in it. Wrapped it right around the cardstock panel that I had just put the Designer Series paper on, and just going to tie a little knot here, hopefully, off to one side. Talking and tying knots are also not two things that I can do at the same time. All right, got that done. We're going to trim down the ends. Hey, Mary, thanks. I'm glad that you like the card. So, and Christine, too, thanks for your nice comments. So, all right, so we're going to set that aside and then going to take a little bit of, you know what, those strings are a little bit too long. if it were more of a feminine card, I don't know, I felt like that looked a little weird. Masculine cards, I tend to go use knots and keep them short. So I don't know, I guess, I don't know why. But using a couple Stampin' Dimensionals, and yes, Mary, these are chopped in half Stampin' Dimensionals, because, you know, that's how I roll. She's probably dying over there, so... Catherine says, always enjoy watching, putting cards together. Golfing isn't your thing, so you didn't get the stamp set. But yes, it definitely would work with lots of other stamp sets. And like I said, Kylie, who inspired my card, actually had used the Forever Blossoms stamp set and dies for the inside of hers, and she had a cherry blossom inside it. So it was very pretty. So, but like I said, I just kind of went with the more masculine themed because I thought it would work perfectly with a little golfer guy. So got that for the card front. And then, yeah, Mary does need just an emoji. So I went ahead and pre-stamped and pre-cut this. This is again from the Clubhouse stamp set. Stamped it in Tuxedo Black Memento ink. And we're going to use the light Crumb Cake Stampin' Blends marker to add a little bit of color to the T. And then a little bit of the light Call Me Clover. This is dark. I was trying to figure out what. Oh, sorry, the dog's out there. I thought I grabbed the wrong marker. Oh, well, we'll use the dark one. I intended to get, I'm sorry, I don't know what she is barking at, but anyway, I intended to get the light one out, and clearly I got the dark instead. So, of course, hopefully Ginny's not making all your dogs go start barking in the background too. Good heavens. So, trying this layout for a wedding card. Ginny, shush. All right, then we've got a little bit of light gray granite ink that we're going to color the golf ball with. Well, good, she's chased them off to the other side of the house, whoever it is. I don't know what she's barking about. Maybe the gardeners are here or something. So added a little bit of light gray granite ink, and then I'm going to take the color lifter and come back in just because I didn't want it quite as dark. So I'm sort of scribbling over it and erasing a little bit of the color, for lack of a better term. And the color lifter kind of does take a second to work, so it'll continue to lighten here as I'm talking and as I'm coloring. So there you go. Oh, your dogs are looking around. I'm sorry. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what she's barking at. She's normally a pretty quiet dog, but apparently not today. So I'm going to use a couple Stampin' Dimensionals to adhere this to the card front. And we're almost done, so Ginny's barking can, you know, I guess she'll probably quit barking and not make a sound for the rest of the day. But, of course, she waits till I get on video and then starts going crazy. So, all right. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to try to adhere it over the center of the card, and get it straight, which is always a little challenging when you get the card front all put together already. Then you like hold your breath and keep your fingers crossed, and if it's not straight, you know, I can always snip it and do it again. But last piece, I went ahead and did this ahead of time as well, and stamped this with the the Clubhouse stamp set. It is a Sahara Sand cardstock and Poppy Parade ink, and then cut it out with the little coordinating die from the golf club's dies. I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue to adhere it right over the card front and over the golf ball image. So that's why it didn't matter that if I didn't get it colored really nicely, because a lot of this will be covered up as well. So all right, so we'll go ahead and adhere that down. Let me hold on to that for a second, and we should be all done. So I'm going to slide this over a little bit and pull out the original, and here they are side by side. So this is the one we just made, and this is the one that I had made as my kind of sample card. And then the inside of both, I guess it's hard to show you the inside of both at once, but the inside of the two cards with the little tunnel that looks through and looks like he's golfing off into the trees. So that is it for my card share today. So oh, they're not being noisy, just curious. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have kicked her out of the room and shut the door, but normally she doesn't bark when I'm on the video, so she just looks at me like I'm a crazy person and wonders who I'm talking to. So, all right, well, thank you so much for joining today, and I appreciate it. Hope that you like the project and hope that you'll give it a try, because like I said, you know, as far as a fancy fold card goes, this one is super simple to do. The score lines are real easy to do, really easy to cut out the center of the card and stamp your image on the inside. Let me know if you have questions or anything I can help you with. All the details I'll be posting out on my blog tomorrow, stampwithamyk.com. If you don't follow along, be sure that you hop on and subscribe so that you can get all the latest posts and information delivered right to your inbox every day. So thanks again for hopping on today, and I appreciate you all joining me, and I will plan to see you guys next week, Tuesday.